her book by talking about how to write an email. And she gives this perspective of something that her father told her when she was little. She said that whenever you're writing or reading an email, put yourself in their shoes. So don't just think, that somebody's attacking you. Try to look at it from their perspective and kind of get a feel of what the energy is rather than jumping to your own conclusions. So the next thing she spoke about is when you're writing an email. So your email should really consist of who it's going to, what you're talking about, and the deadline, because otherwise, you'll be stuck there sending follow-up emails or, just wondering if somebody read your email or not. The subject line should be a summary of what the body is of your email. And a tip to do is that when it's a really long message that you want to get across, to break it in half. So have, the first one being, let's say, a summary, and then on the bottom, you can have clarification or in detail or something like that. And then always have an open end to your email. Say, let me know what you think, or, I hope that works with you, or something like that. Allow the other person to have a say in what you're telling them. So, to give you an example, when you get a text from somebody and they say hi with a period afterwards, you kind of get a feeling of, what did I do wrong? So that's something we always need to take into consideration when writing an email and when, just texting somebody through Messenger or Teams or, whatever medium of, contact your job uses. So always be sure that your tone is being, properly expressed with the punctuation that you're using. Respect is something that seems very obvious, treat others the way you wish to be treated. But in this digital world, it kind of has a different meaning to it. So the first thing is to proofread your email before sending it. And I can give you an example. I've received emails that, I really didn't want to respond to because I felt like the person didn't put enough effort into writing it. Like either they completely misspelled my name, either there's spelling mistakes throughout the whole email. If it's all choppy, or if it's all one sentence, or if it's just, like a block of information. It doesn't really make you want to communicate with another person. Another thing is to honor somebody else's time and schedules. It is easy at the last minute to say, oh my gosh, something just came up and I can't make the meeting. But to take into consideration that somebody prepared this meeting, somebody, worked hard for this meeting, somebody moved around their schedule for this meeting. And when you reschedule something, you're not only taking up a new spot, but you're also wasting an old spot. And another thing is, don't have people chase you down when it comes to responding to an email. It's your responsibility. They sent you an email. It's up to you to respond to them. Another one is not to use the mute button during a conference. Like, take, for example, I'm talking to you guys right now. If all of a sudden I just said, okay, hold on a minute, and I did something on my phone, you guys would feel unimportant. You would feel like she's my, like I'm her second option. And that doesn't really give off a good feeling. Last, as we mentioned before, is to write clear subject lines. So it's very important because people get hundreds of emails a day, and it's very difficult to know, which one's talking about what, or even if you've messaged somebody multiple emails in one day, it's hard for them to be able to differentiate between, the different emails. And last but not least, always make sure that you're spelling the person's name correctly, because it really will have effect, and a good effect. Like, if it's for a job post that you're replying to, make sure that you're spelling the person's name properly. Or if it's for, just talking to your professor, everything leaves an impression. And when you really take the time to do something, people appreciate it. So when it comes to the body of an email, something that we tend to do very often is not to get to the point. So we'll just, type and type and type. Emails should be more concise. And a lot of times, if you're apologizing for something, you'll say, I'm so sorry for this. I didn't mean to do this. And then I'm sorry again. I'm sorry. Or, something along those lines. So we tend to apologize a lot in our emails, or we tend to, start by saying, it's an absolute honor to work with you. I've looked at all of your achievements. And, the more you flatter somebody in an email, the more you come off as not very genuine. And another thing is to limit filler words. So saying, "Hi X, I guess we could do this today. I just thought it might be a good idea because etc. I guess let me know." Something like that. It kind of takes away from the confidence of your email. It kind of makes people doubt your opinions. So always be confident in an email. Another thing to do is to always proofread before you send something. Just give me 1 second. As well, mirror the punctuation of who the original sender is. So if they started by saying, "Hi, Naomi," that's my first name, or if they started by saying, "Hi, Miss Hirsch," you should follow the way that they're telling you. They're kind of leading it, and the way they end their email, you should also be following that as well, like punctuation. If they're using emojis in there, then it means that they're interested, and they're a more friendly person, and so that you should reciprocate so that they get a feeling that you guys are on the same page. Another thing is to reply to emails. If it's urgent, make sure to either mention in the email that it's urgent, or you can use exclamation points, or you can also just use a different medium of communication and you can call them instead. So sometimes when you receive an email, the person either isn't clear or you're not understanding what they're trying to tell you. So just ask. Send an email asking for confirmation. You can ask from somebody else. And you can also ask if, maybe we can just schedule a quick call for about 5-10 minutes so I can really understand what it is that you're trying to get across. So those are all like kind of tips to deal with ambiguity. Before you send your email, you should always ask yourself, is your message clear? Read it once you've written it and be like, all right, do I understand what I'm trying to get across, or do I only understand what I'm reading because I wrote it and I have extra information? Another thing is to make sure that the way you're writing and that, the content of your email, that it's given in a way that the person will understand the meaning you have behind your words. Because especially when you're reading something, you could send somebody a text saying, um, take, for example, a situation that happened with a friend of mine. I wasn't very happy with what she did, and so I texted her, and she got defensive because she thought that I was attacking her. But meanwhile, I was just trying to tell her that, like, I'm not really happy with what you did, but I understand and I'm okay with it. But she still felt like I was attacking her. So for myself, I guess, is to reread what I'm sending and to make sure that, there's only one way to interpret what I'm trying to say. Another thing is, if the message is confusing, call them. Ask, can we have a call? Can you either send me a Teams message? Can we meet in person? Something like that. Always try to get, your point across the right way. And also, just as the last point said, are you trying to be like, are you unintentionally, projecting some underlying things? Example, "Hey, I'm running to a meeting right now. Can we talk about this later?" You're sounding rushed. It would have been better for you just to wait to respond to this email once your meeting is done and you have a few minutes that you could just sit down and write your email. It makes the person feel important. So, another thing to take into consideration is writing in all capitals. I mean, that's all capitals really make people's heart pound sometimes. So, just make sure that you're using capitals appropriately. You're also, not like using it in your subject line if it's not like an urgent matter, because it really does tend to put people on edge and it's not helpful for anybody. Another thing is, in different cultures and different countries, emojis have different meanings. So in some places it could be rude. It could be considered very rude to, add an emoji in your email, but in other places it's standard practice. The same thing goes with different punctuation. In some places, adding 5 exclamation points is an issue. In other places, it means she's excited. But everything that you write has context, and as long as it fully aligns with, your meaning and who it's being sent to, then it's all good. The last thing about an email is to always follow up. Always send a message afterwards saying, thank you so much for your time. If it was for a meeting, even if it's just for an email, thank you so much for your timely response, etc. Just always follow up with a thank you, or always follow up when it concerns somebody ignoring your emails. So you can always say, hey, have you seen my email? It's been a few days, etc. Looking forward to hearing back from you. It just kind of brings your email to the top of the stack again, especially because when people have a lot of emails in their inbox, it's kind of difficult to always remember who you said, oh, I'll send you X by the end of the week. So this kind of concerns to Zoom meetings as well as in-person meetings. You always need to make sure that your vision and what you're trying to get across is translating appropriately. So when your audience has a blank expression, or they're crossing their arms, or they're not really paying attention, it kind of means that it's time for you to change your tone, or change the way that you're saying something, so that other people can understand what it is that you're trying to come across. For example, I once was talking to a group, right? And I told them exactly what I would be doing, and nobody agreed with what I said. And I said, all right, give me your feedback. Let me take it into consideration. And so I took their feedback, and I did change a few things, but rather than, throwing out my whole proposal that I had already done, I took their feedback. I adjusted what, they had told me to my original proposal. And then I changed the medium. So I put it into a PowerPoint. I made it visual because, some people are more visual, and they all agreed that the points that I had brought across originally were very valid, but it was just the way that it was given. So always to take into consideration, that what you're trying to get across should get across properly. And if it doesn't work, to change your tactics and try something else. So something very important with, digitalization is what is implicit in body language now has to be explicit in our digital body language. So this is like little things, which we're going to talk about soon, just little nuances, little, you know, turning of your head, the talking with your hands, stuff like that, is that people really can't see that when you're on Zoom and your hands are lower than your monitor. So things to really be conscious about. So the first one is in traditional body language, it involves a head tilted to one side. So let's say I'm talking to you and I'm listening like this, and you feel like I'm listening to what you're saying. Versus on digital, it's to like a text, or to praise somebody else's input in an email, or to make a detailed comment, something like that, or just saying, I agree. This kind of gives the same form of, you're not just talking to a computer screen, somebody's listening and taking note of what you're saying. Another thing is some people stroke their chin, or they'll pause before talking. So this really just gives off the impression that they're thinking about what you said and they're taking into consideration. Digitally, sometimes it just means, taking a few extra minutes to respond to a text rather than just send, this is the first thing that came to mind. All right, that's what I'm going to send. This is also, shows respect, because when you take consideration before you write a text, you know exactly what you're trying to say, and you know that it's being said properly. Another thing is nodding, bobbing, or smiling. Stuff like this it makes people feel comfortable with you. You feel like, you're a person, you're being understood, and it gives you human interaction. But with digital body language, it's kind of difficult. So when you respond promptly to a text, or replying to an email with comments, or, just using a thumbs up emoji if you're in a meeting, demonstrates, that there's somebody else here, and that we're communicating, and that I'm here for you. So this is back to like an email. So concerning the email, the priority is the choice of medium. You should ask. Don't just assume, oh, let me call this person, because generally we create habits with people. So, if you always text somebody and then out of the blue you call them, you're going to make them nervous. Or, some people are anti phone calls, and just the fact that the phone's ringing makes them nervous. So before you choose, a way of contact, always ask what the preferred way of contact is. And then, it all depends on priority. So if it's something that's very urgent, then you can obviously, try to press for an in person meeting. But if it's not, then you can go for an email or just a quick text. Another is emotion. We all show emotion, as we discussed earlier, through punctuation and symbols. So exclamation points and smiley faces, or thumbs down, or an angry face. That we spoke about is respect. So it's all about timing. It's all about rereading what it is that you wrote. Respect really is vital. Another one is, give me one sec. Sorry, the lights turn off. Is inclusion. So always make sure that you're sending it to the right person, because there could be multiple people with the same name. And if you don't really pay attention to who you're just typing in there and just pressing enter, it might send to the wrong person. Another thing is when you CC or you BCC or you reply all, you can make a mistake. If you were trying to send somebody a personal message from a thread and you accidentally press reply all, it might be an issue as well when it comes to who else is getting attached to this email. If it's something personal, you don't really want to blurt it out to the entire company. Another thing to consider is identity, your digital persona. You always want to come across as somebody who is genuine and who always has time for people and who responds timely to emails and stuff like that. Your identity, if you're only communicating to somebody virtually, is really important. Next is your online footprint. So your online footprint really consists of your profile pictures on your social media, what type of social media you have, do a Google search of yourself. See what pops up. If it's something bad, try your best to take it down. Your online footprint really does make an impact, especially on future employers and honestly on any situation. Nowadays people Google search everybody if they want to make a connection to them or just, get in contact with them. They will Google them and they will find things that even you won't be able to find. So another thing to consider that others think might be, it would be sufficient to put it in an email instead. Something to do is to really ask either the person who's giving the meeting or you tell who you're giving the meeting to what success looks like at the end of this meeting. So you give everybody context as to what the purpose of this meeting is. As well, have everybody who's on the call introduce themselves, because it makes them feel like, they're part of something. It's not like it's just a lecture. And then another one is really to have a clear purpose established so that everybody's on the same page. Everybody feels like, they're being spoken to as a group, and everybody leaves with proper perspective. A story that was brought up in this book is there was this woman who was at work, and her colleague, who had his own office but always kept the door open, would yell a lot. And it wasn't that he was just yelling a lot, it was just that he had a really loud voice. So whenever he would be talking to people, it would carry throughout, the whole area, and it would really disturb this woman. And after, 6 months of hearing him, she got fed up of it, and she said, "Hi, do you mind lowering your voice or just closing your door, because I really can't focus when you're talking so loud on the phone." And this man really didn't even realize that he was doing it. And he said, "Oh my gosh, no problem. I'm so sorry." And from then on, he closed his door while he was on the phone. And she never heard him as much anymore. So really always ask. You don't know what you don't know. The last thing over here is something really important that I believe everybody can benefit from. We spoke about this at our panel on Monday. We had a student who was working at a big company, and he was asked to speak with, let's say, the heads of the company to send them quick messages, because the timing of this project was very tight and answers needed to be done as soon as possible. There was no need for email. They said, just like, be direct with me. Those were his instructions. And so he was saying how he had to be direct with his employer, who's like his boss's boss's boss. And he just, kind of gave us a template that we can all use when it comes to being a bit informal in a text while still keeping decorum. So, hello, the name of your employer. I was referred to you by this person. So, giving context as to who you are, making sure, I'm not some random person messaging you. I'm working on an urgent initiative for this blank, could either be, for him, or it could be for somebody who's under him. But it gives context as to what you need this for. And that requires X piece of information, meaning, I need this piece. I am who I say I am. It's very urgent. And then as well, you can say, would you have 5 to 10 minutes to spare for a quick chat? Because this, whatever information might not be complete. And then just say thank you afterwards. So this is just one way to be in a message to remain, appropriate while still being direct. Thank you all.